Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I want to go through some of the reasons why I am not invested in Tesla. And before I do, I just want to say that I do support Tesla as a company, and I do support what they're trying to do, and I do think that electric cars are the future. Towards the end of the video, I will go through some of those points and talk say a little bit of positive things about Tesla. But I want to start off with giving the reasons why I, as an investor, am not buying Tesla stock. Reason number one, Tesla is massively overvalued. The market cap right now at this time today is $53 billion. However, over the past years, it's been revenue negative. It lost like $1.632 billion in 2017. Now, to Tesla's credit, they have had 2 quarters in a row where they're profitable. And I do agree with projections that Tesla will be profitable in 2019. Which is great, because if they kept losing money like they were losing it, they weren't going to last much longer. And I think as Tesla rolls out more of those Model 3s, I think that they're going to see a jump in their gross revenue. So I don't think that Tesla is going to be revenue negative very often anymore. However, even at the profits it has been making in the past 2 quarters, there is no way, given those numbers, that Tesla is a $53 billion company. Now, if the numbers don't match up with the $53 billion market cap that the market has given Tesla, why then is it worth $53 billion according to the market right now? Well, one thing you have to understand is that the value of the company and the value of a company according to the numbers and the value of the company according to the market are 2 different things. The reason why Tesla's overvalued right now is because the stock has been hyped up a lot, and because of that, a lot of people bought into it, because anytime there's a new exciting thing, people want to invest in it because they think that when it becomes a big company, they're going to be rich later on, or they're going to make a lot of money at least. And I do think that the people who got into Tesla at the very beginning are going to do very well, because I think Tesla is here to stay. I don't think they're going to go out of business. I did think they were going to go out of business a couple years ago, but they have defied my expectations. I never even anticipated that they would have a profitable quarter given their track record. But I'm an investor. I'm not a speculator, and I'm not a gambler. So if I don't see the numbers lining up with the market cap that is given to the company, if I don't see that the market cap for the company is lower than what it ought to be according to the numbers, I don't invest in it. As a value investor, I invest in companies that are undervalued. Reason number 3 why I'm not invested in Tesla. The automotive industry is a very competitive market. And there are a lot of car companies vying for people's businesses. In comparison to other companies such as Ford and other more developed companies, Tesla's customer service is dismal. You can see all kinds of videos of people who ordered their Teslas and either did not receive them, or they just received them late. Some of them are still waiting after a long time. And it's hard to get a hold of people in Tesla that are actually able to help you with their problems. They really need to invest in their customer service infrastructure, because if there's too much of a pain in the rear to deal with, the enthusiasts might still buy the cars, but the common public will not. And I don't think Tesla's intention is to be a fringe company. I think they want to be mainstream. Another problem with competition is that there are all these other auto companies like Ford, General Motors, Toyota, Hyundai, and its sister company Kia, and Nissan. All these companies, oh, and Dodge too, by the way. All these companies have been manufacturing cars for years. And Tesla's pretty new. It's a new kid on the block in that respect. Now, Tesla does make some very nice cars. In fact, I drove a Tesla Roadster a few years ago, and it was so much fun. I got on the interstate with that thing, and it just took off. You know, those Roadsters, I think, go 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds. So, Tesla does make good cars. But the problem is that these other companies have been doing it for a very long time. Yeah, they have some flops. You know, Ford's had some flops lately, for instance. And by the way, I am invested in Ford. However, these companies are not they're not pioneering this. Right now, Tesla is taking all of the risk, while the other companies are sitting back and watching what happens. And Ford said it plans to have a full lineup of vehicles in the 2020s. I can't remember what year the CFO said it would be. I think it was the CFO that said it. It could have been the CEO. It's been a while since I listened to that call. But they are planning on having a full electric lineup. And Ford is a company to be reckoned with in the auto industry. And if Tesla makes all these mistakes and these other companies learn from it and they have all this cash on hand, they're going to be able to scale this stuff a lot faster than Tesla can. Reason number 3 why I'm not invested in Tesla. The automotive industry is a very competitive market. And there are a lot of car companies vying for people's businesses. In comparison to other companies such as Ford and other more developed companies, Tesla's customer service is dismal. You can see all kinds of videos of people who ordered their Teslas and either did not receive them or they just received them late. Some of them are still waiting after a long time. And it's hard to get a hold of people in Tesla that are actually able to help you with their problems. They really need to invest in their customer service infrastructure, because if there's too much of a pain in the rear to deal with, the enthusiasts might still buy the cars, but the common public will not. And I don't think Tesla's intention is to be a fringe company. I think they want to be mainstream. Another problem with competition is that there are all these other auto companies like Ford, General Motors, Toyota, Hyundai, and its sister company Kia, and Nissan. All these companies, oh, and Dodge too, by the way. All these companies have been manufacturing cars for years. And Tesla's pretty new. It's a new kid on the block in that respect. Now, Tesla does make some very nice cars. In fact, I drove a Tesla Roadster a few years ago, and it was so much fun. I got on the interstate with that thing, and it just took off. You know, those Roadsters, I think, go 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds. So, Tesla does make good cars. But the problem is that these other companies have been doing it for a very long time. Yeah, they have some flops. You know, Ford's had some flops lately, for instance. And by the way, I am invested in Ford. However, these companies are not they're not pioneering this. Right now, Tesla is taking all of the risk, while the other companies are sitting back and watching what happens. And Ford said it plans to have a full lineup of vehicles in the 2020s. I can't remember what year the CFO said it would be. I think it was the CFO that said it. It could have been the CEO. It's been a while since I listened to that call. But they are planning on having a full electric lineup. And Ford is a company to be reckoned with in the auto industry. And if Tesla makes all these mistakes and these other companies learn from it and they have all this cash on hand, they're going to be able to scale this stuff a lot faster than Tesla can. So, and let me just give you an example of, because a lot of people say, well, you know, it's the first bona fide electric car company. They're the first ones in the United States that are really giving it a shot. And I can empathize with that a bit. I mean, I see where people who say that are coming from. However, I used to work for a company called Clearwire, and Clearwire was the first company to build a 4G network. Now, it wasn't nationwide, but they started off with 3G, and they called it expedience. And they decided to move up to 4G. They were the first company to try and do it. And there were a few competing ideas on how a 4G network should be built. Clearwire picked WiMAX as their choice for 4G. Now, if you look on the commercials for cell phones, you can see everything's LTE. But they started building out this WiMAX network, and then they got to Chicago and all these other cities that are really challenging to build a network in. And not only did they use WiMAX, they started using T1 and T2 cables when they needed T3 cables. And because of that, the network ran a lot slower than it ought to, and it was a lot less reliable than what it ought to have been. If they had just used the right cables, they might have had a reasonably reliable network. But over time, it was very apparent as their competitors, like LightSquare, for instance, was building a 4G LTE network, that LTE was superior in speeds to WiMAX. With WiMAX, you were pretty lucky to get 10 megabits per second. With LTE, you could get speeds akin to cable, Bit of a higher ping because of the wireless connection, but hey, you could get really good speeds with 4G LTE. So Clearwire finally, the first they doubled down on WiMAX and they said, "Oh, this is the future. WiMAX is where it's at." While these other companies like Verizon and LightSquared started building 4G LTE networks, but eventually Clearwire had to admit that they were wrong about their prediction, and they started switching their networks over to LTE. But by the time they started doing this, it was too late. They were already revenue negative. In fact, the only profit they really made was from their investors like Sprint that were investing a lot into Clearwire to build its 4G network. Because Sprint's plan was to utilize that 4G network so that it could stay competitive with Verizon and AT&T as they built their own. And Clearwire ended up having to lay off a bunch of their employees. I actually got fired right before they started the layoffs. Obviously, they didn't want to give me they just were trying to avoid giving me a severance. But they laid off a bunch of people. They even lied to the government of the city of Milton about a promise that they made about hiring a certain number of employees in exchange for getting a second building ready for them, paid for by the city of Milton, and parking lots. I mean, it was a really underhanded company. And I know because I worked in it. And I can say it now because Clearwire is not around anymore. But Sprint eventually bought out Clearwire because of its assets with its 4G. Sprint had so much money in Clearwire, they just couldn't let that network go. So Sprint bought out Clearwire, and they started building their own. They started fixing Clearwire's network and then adding to it. So Clearwire is now no more, and now it's just under Sprint. So, in essence, this shows that being the first one, especially in the area of technology, is not always a good thing. Now, I do think that people are going to make money off of Tesla because I think Tesla is going to stick around. So, now that I've explained some of the reasons why I'm not invested in Tesla, I want to start explaining some of the positive things and why I think Tesla is going to stay around. As I said at the beginning of the video, I am fully behind Tesla. I think that they're going to do a lot of good, not just for the United States, but the entire world. And one of the reasons why I think that is because there are numerous ways to generate electricity. Some methods are more clean than others. For instance, coal is a rather dirty method of producing energy, or producing electricity rather. Whereas natural gas is a little cleaner, and then you have nuclear power, which is also relatively clean, but everybody's afraid of the planet exploding, you know, for good reason. Whenever it happens, it's always a total disaster. And there's other types of methods of generating electricity, such as hydroelectric, which is kind of limited because there's only so much running water that's actually strong enough to generate any significant amount of electricity. And in fact, there are even some mini plants that actually use garbage. Yes, garbage to generate electricity. Now, when they do that, it doesn't produce a lot of electricity, but it does produce some, though. I think that solar power is one of the more promising types of ways to generate electricity. The only problem is the solar panels are not good for birds. So I think we have to figure out a different way of collecting sunlight that's not going to harm the birds that are flying in the air if we're going to try and do that large scale one day. And also, of course, the technology has to come a longer way to where we can harness more energy from the sun. The only way solar power would fail at harnessing enough energy to power the world is if the sun's energy was actually not enough to power the whole world. Once we could harness it to its fullest extent by the time it travels the 93 million miles or something rather to Earth for us to harvest. So I think from a green standpoint, I think that Tesla really would do a lot of good for the company, and I think that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people are going to start favoring electric cars. Now, there is hydrogen cell cars. I'm not going to speak to that because I don't know a whole lot of it, but when I did hear about it, I thought it sounded fairly promising, but it just seemed like it would be a lot harder to put the infrastructure in place to let cell power cars be commonplace. Now, of course, that could always be fixed. I mean, there's gas stations everywhere. Why can't there be stations for hydrogen cell cars? You know, fair enough point. I don't know enough about it to speak to it, though, so I'm just going to leave that alone. I also, you know, when I talk about green energy, you know, I don't ascribe to climate change in the sense of where if we don't change our act, we're going to destroy the world in 10 years or whatever. However, God did give man dominion over nature, and he was to be the caretaker of it, and because of that, we should take care of our planet. So if there are ways we can do to cut things we could do to cut emissions within reason, we don't want to harm the economy too much in doing so. We don't want to harm people too much in doing so, because we do have dominion. So that means that we can harvest from the earth if necessary. But I think there's ways to be efficient in doing it to where we don't put a lot of animal and plant life on earth in jeopardy when we try and harness this energy for our benefit. Now, so I am behind Tesla, because I think that electric cars are the future. But there are some other things too. Tesla actually is going to be profitable, and I think it's going to be profitable on a regular basis. I think it's going to have a great 2019. I think it's going to be the best year of Tesla ever. Now, I also think that a lot of people are going to make money off of Tesla. And not because they're buying to it at a good value. Anyone who's buying Tesla right now is paying way too much for the company. However, again, as I mentioned earlier in the video, stock prices do not always line up with the proper value of the company. I do think that Tesla, I would not be surprised to see Tesla's stock one day be $1,000 a share. I would not be surprised at all. I think that it really, if it succeeds in what it's doing, I think a lot of people are going to get hyped up about it, and so many people are going to buy into it that the stock could get to $1,000 a share. Would not surprise me a bit. And also, with the numbers being so small and what they're reporting, compared to its market cap, it's not hard to impress people. If Tesla had a year where it made $4 billion, everybody would go nuts, and a bunch of people would buy the stock. So, I think that Tesla is going to be around for a while. I do think that there are going to be people that make money off of it. Now, is it going to go up to $1,000 like I speculate? Now that is just speculation, so I do admit I could be wrong about that. Or is it going to just plummet one day when people realize that they're paying too much for the company? I think it's more likely that Tesla's stock price, if it stays in business, which I think it will, is going to go up over time. I think it's going to be right up there in market cap one day with Apple and Google, which, by the way, those two companies are way overvalued too. But I'm not going to touch on that. This is about Tesla. So, but I do think people are going to make money off of it. Is Tesla a good investment from a value standpoint? No. But if you're speculating that the stock price of Tesla is going to go up in the future and you're going to make money off of it, I would venture to say you're probably right about that. So if you're in Tesla right now, I think you're going to make money off of it, because when Tesla does become very profitable, which I think it will one day, then you're going to be able to reap the benefits by being invested in Tesla. So if you want to take that jump, more power to you. I wish you the best. I ain't jumping on that ship because I don't like those kind of speculative investments. But if other people want to do it, that's their gig. It's their future, and if they believe in that, then they ought to invest in it. So it's not all bad about Tesla, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of good things about Tesla. Just for me, I have to separate what I think about a company as a whole and my investing. I have to keep those two things separate, because I have to look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie. So by looking at the numbers, I take a lot of speculation out of choices in my stocks, and that's one of the biggest risks in stocks is speculative risk. You don't know what the future holds, but if you can look at the numbers over a good period of time and value the company, then you're more apt to make a smart investment decision, as opposed to just investing in companies without considering what the company's worth first. So, anyway, I hope you liked my video. If you do like it, just hit that like button. If you don't like it, then just don't do anything. Just move on to the next video. And I hope that you'll subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. But until the next video, I wish you all a great week, and God bless.